Thursday, April 18th, and it is 5:34. We'll start with the call to order. The roll call.
Roll call. Commissioner Kachari,
Here.
Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Parker,
Here.
Commissioner Nemeth,
Here.
and Commissioner Wolf is not here, at least as of yet.
Now we'll approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll open up to our first public commentary, limited to agenda items only. Please speak for 3 minutes maximum.
Hello, my name is Debbie Marks. I've been a vendor at the Farmers Market for 28 years. This is a perfect time for the top 3 artists to move into the 3 vacant stalls at the market. These stalls became available through a very fair process of going through the seniority list, no one picking those stalls at the last stall assignment in July of last year. They were not picked because farmers didn't want that 3rd stall. So it left the 3 stalls vacant. I think we all know about this, right? Okay. I think it would be wonderful if the 3 top seniority artists that have 25 years in move into those stalls. I think that would be in good faith for everything they've contributed in the last quarter of a century at the market. And I'd like this to happen now before the stall assignment in July. Also, I would like to see this committee act on the paperwork to match what we do at market every Saturday. There are 3 or 4 of us annual artists that take 2 stalls and pay for 2. And we've done this for 30 years, but we're not allowed to pick 2 at the annual walkout, so therefore we don't get 2 together. If we could make the paperwork match what we actually do, we could have the security of 2 stalls together, be able to get there in the morning, unload after 30 years of coming, and then get out of the way of the dailies. It would really smooth the process in the morning. And I think if we did it even on a temporary, let's see what happens basis, everyone would see this does not change the artist numbers at all, and it wouldn't actually even change the dynamics of the market at all, except to make things run smoother in the morning, which I think we all agree would be great. Thank you.
So I'm going to start down here because this first one I don't think is on the agenda. So I'll say that at the end. This first paragraph, okay. Okay, so concerning allowing artists to own 2 annual stalls instead of the one that we can now have that Debbie was just talking about, I propose we establish a process for asking for an exception to the rule instead of changing the rule at this time. For artists who already take 2 stalls every day, like Debbie does, like I do, to allow us to own the 2nd stall. This could be a segue into blending artists into just being regular members of the market, which is the only fair and acceptable solution in the end, because it would show it makes no difference to the mix since artists are already in the mix, and those who want 2 stalls already take 2 stalls. Just to illustrate, I am a daily artist, not an annual. How many stalls do I take every single Saturday, 9 months a year for the last 20 years in actual physical reality at the actual market, as opposed to on an imaginary paper map of annual stalls? I take 2 stalls. I'm just not allowed to pick which stalls I take in a fair order. I'm still at market in 2 stalls every day. The way my proposal would work is once an artist gets up to the place where they would normally be skipped over to get the annual stall, they could apply to be an exception to the rule and ask to be awarded the 2nd stall. If they have already been taking a 2nd stall on a daily basis in reality at the market for years, 10, 20, 30 years, they would be told yes and get to own the next available stall according to their actual seniority like everyone else. If an artist who has always only taken 1 stall, which there's a lot of, asked for an exception to get 2 stalls, based on this idea, they would be told no at this time. This idea can be tweaked in its details, but I hope that the basic idea could allow for vendors like Debbie Marks to own a second stall at this time without going full-blown into changing the rule to allow all artists to automatically take 2 annual stalls. Again, doing so will show us no harm is done by allowing Debbie to own the 2 stalls that she already takes every day at the market. Then we'll be able to see that concept play out in reality, and it will help us realize there's no logical reason not to go ahead and blend artists fully into the regular seniority list, as that is the only fair and acceptable solution, and as it will not change the mix, as artists are already in the mix once they are accepted to the market as vendors in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will approve the minutes from the March meeting.
Motion to approve?
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
No presentation? Now on to regular business.
All I have is in the manager report.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, we will move on to our market manager report.
Oh, we should probably see if there's any
Oh, new business,
business
okay.
non-agenda.
Do we have any new business, non-agenda items?
I think this was, not public comment, yeah.
Okay.
If anything new? I guess I was wondering if we are making a vote on the artisan, or is that?
No vote today, and
Okay.
I have this in my report to give you an update.
Okay.
So we'll move on to the market manager report.
All right. Since, so there's a couple things I'll be filling you in about. So if you have any questions or comments while I'm going through this, please feel free to interject. So, operations, the parking lot between the Market and Carytown building is repaved this week. So that's gonna be done by Saturday, to match our other nice, smooth parking lot. And the gutters are scheduled to be replaced this month still. The certificate of insurance, since I wrote this, has gone through, and so hopefully starting that soon, maybe next week. Update on the daily artisans moving to the 3 extra annual stalls. So just as a reminder, at our last meeting, we agreed to suggest, put it out there to the vendors that PMAC would recommend the 3 artisans at the top of the list move up to the 3 extra stalls that we had left over after Stalla Summit last year, and then not change the overall number of stalls normally given to artisans, which is 12 in the market rules. But this be kind of like a one-time thing. So for example, if an artisan were to retire, then the next stall would go to a producer, and so on until we got back to that 12. I think we had thought this was kind of the least disruptive and maybe like a good first step to see how that went. And also the other part of that recommendation was for this commission to revisit how the artisans do work within the market, at least once every 3 years, to see if it's still a good best practice for us. And also this commission looking at percentage of each type of food that we have at the market and trying to set goals for that. So saying like 15% artisan, 30% vegetable, that kind of thing. So after bringing this back to city staff, I think we just want to be careful about how we do this because the market rules do say the stall shall not exceed 12 for the artisans. And so we want to, especially legally going forward, just make sure that we're doing it correctly so that, you know, we don't jump, try to do something, and then it backfires. I think it could hurt both artisans if that happened. It could hurt us. We're, you know, just kind of looking at it a little more in depth to see, do we need to make a rule change? Do we have the authority to do this? You know, is this within our authority? And if not, then we would have to go and actually change the operating rules. So that's where we are. My goal is to get an answer by next meeting. And I really want to know by the time we do the next stall assignment, this next stall move up, which is going to be midsummer. Any questions about that?
So the city's helping you with that process of figuring out the legalities and things like that?
Yeah, so we're gonna have, you know, we're gonna look over it, have legal kind of take a look because it does possibly affect the operating rules.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So, so then my other, the other pieces of that, however, the commission wanting to set percentages and goals, I think we can still move forward with, and I'd like to maybe put it on the agenda for next month as something to discuss. Market infrastructure update. So, we are kind of moving along. I was able to meet with Kohler Architecture. They are the ones that designed the building for us, and are really familiar with the space. And we requested maybe they come up with a very rough sketch draft idea of what it might look like to have the sidewalls on the current structure. That was something we had agreed to look into as the commission. And so I think they're gonna go and come up with two possibilities. One being a lighter not fabric, maybe like canvas, wall type thing. And another being something maybe more concrete and heavier, like a glass or plastic sidewalls. And then I requested it, you know, can we make them in sections along the outside of the market? Can we make them versatile so we can open and close them fairly easily, maybe even on a day-by-day basis to get in and get out for loading and then closing them during the day, during a market, that kind of thing. So in the beginning stages, but they are able to come up with a draft plan for us. We also were pretty specific. We don't want them to get too far down the road before being able to bring it back and really think through it through a lot of people, like possibly, of course, this commission, but also, you know, maybe going back to the vendor and community advisory commissions that we had for the market building. Because we don't want to have like a finished design and then bring it to someone. We want to have a rough plan. So that's kind of where we are now. And I guess I would love to hear too thoughts from the commission on something you would really want to make sure was in that initial proposal, if there's anything.
One thing that I would recommend is that there's windows or some way to let daylight in.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just gonna feel like a giant cave.
Yes.
Well, this is really exciting, and thanks, Stephanie, for initiating that. I think something we've talked about over the months is having sort of like a staged rollout plan. So if they could come up with a plan that could be done in a section to start, and then a large, you know, based on funding and how we're gonna finance this whole thing. If they could come up with something modular maybe, or, you know, that can be done in sections.
And not only for funding, but to have as little impact on the vendors that are coming every time, every week to the market.
I'd also like to say, I think a reason too for making this, for not going too far with this is we are gonna have to, at some point, decide how does this fit in with the current building structure, once we have I'd like to first have a budget. Once we have an idea of how much this would cost, I think then we need to have the discussion, okay, is it possible to do this as an interim? How far does this set us off from the building plan? And compare the two. Or is it too much? Does it take too much away from the building? And is the building still the structure we want to pursue or not? So I think that that's a big conversation once we have a budget we will have as well. And then final note, I think we had talked about the assessment of the foundation being a big cost. What they're coming up with for us would just be putting in new posts to attach the walls to, as opposed to putting it on the ceiling, in which case we don't need to do a assessment of the foundation or redo the foundation. So that avoids that, which is nice.
So it would be a new set of posts then going
A
in?
new set of posts going in to attach the walls to, is my understanding.
When they come up with those plans, I'm a real spatial thinker, and I don't know if it'd help for you guys as vendors, if they could just like chalk it out or paint it out there, because I'm wondering how much new posts would be in the way for
Right.
the loading and unloading and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's not gonna be one door per stall, is it? Probably one every 2 or 3?
Probably one every 2 or 3
Okay.
but I'm not sure. They are, part of this is they are gonna come up with some very specific renderings for us, where we'll be able to look, this is what they gave us for the building, so I can show you. But that we'll be able to look at like an overhead map of each stall with the stall numbers included and see where those posts are going. So, yeah, we'll be able to see, and I think that's like one thing that we as a commission or a vendor or community commission would be looking at is how can the posts not be in the way?
Right. Yeah.
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 Right.
And then just for thinking about Alex's idea of doing this modularly, the doors are really needed for winterizing the market. And so for thinking about that really cold time of year, currently how many vendors, just an estimate of how many vendors do you have? Clearly, if it's winterized, there could be many more vendors wanting to come.
So right now, in the winter, we have about 20 vendors that come. And then they take up a few more stalls than that. I would say we asked them to come up with an idea that would enclose, a proposal that would enclose that whole main aisle from the Carytown building to the office. And that, I think, we could anticipate being able to accommodate more vendors. We did that whole aisle.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions about that? Okay. So we'll continue to work on that. No updates in regard to funding for the market building right now. The food truck rallies, Bloom Meadworks will be participating this year. So they make their own mead and cider, and we have a little roped off area for them to serve. So I'm excited about that because, it gets all our values. It highlights, they're a producer using local honey and local apples to make their product. And so they will be there, which is great. And then starting in June, Michigan Theater will be showing movies on their big blow-up movie screen after the rally's end. So people can stick around and they can watch movies.
That's great.
Great. And we're also making zero waste a requirement this year. for the rallies.
Great.
Registration, well, I have it's now open for City Workplace CSA pickup. It's not actually quite open yet. I have the registration page almost ready, but it's not quite ready to go. This is a pilot project. We'll be doing a workplace pickup for CSA boxes from 4 participating farms. We offered it to all vendors, and it really kind of just fit those that had CSAs that were boxes and that did drop off at market. So we'll be bringing the boxes to City Hall for Ann Arbor employees to pick up.
Nice.
I just wanted a little update on our partnership with the library and 100th birthday. The library is going to be doing an exhibit for us in July and August, and we'll have a lot of old photos and history up. Lisa has been helping a lot put together this information and the pictures. There'll be a reception in July, and the market's also going to be part of the summer games this year with the library. So a lot of people participate, and they'll have to come to the market to be able to fill out their cards to say they participated in the game. Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that we asked the archivist at the library how many people participate in those summer games, and he said there's 9,000 active players, so
Get a lot of people.
it's really great.
A Market to Chef update. You guys remember this program we did last year? We've combined with Argus. They offer very similar to what we were offering, an online ordering system sent out to chefs. They have pickup at their location on Packard, and they are opening it up to any Ann Arbor farmers market vendor has produce that wants to participate, even if they're not an Argus vendor. And we'll also be sending a newsletter along with those communications with chefs, with what we have fresh at the market, with lots of pictures, also trying to encourage chefs to come to market. Just a little easier than us using an Excel document to take orders. Yeah, and Argus also can offer payment and invoices and receipts and refrigeration, which was key.
So sorry, the change in that is just that you guys won't have to be doing all that management and coordinating.
We won't be creating the list, the ordering list, and the availability from farmers and sending it to the chefs. Argus will be doing that.
Great.
Part of the market's 100th birthday will be offering a big communal, farm-to-table dinner in the market space, hopefully for the fall, using vendor products and chefs that are local. So planning is starting for that soon. Stay updated. We have a new staff member starting, Jermaine Smith. She's great. She has a background in, doing a lot of work with minority communities and outreach to POC communities. She used to work with I'm blanking on the name. Center for, now she works for the county, and she does conflict resolution. So she'll be a great new team member. And Becky is actually being promoted to Assistant Farmers Market Manager and Outreach Coordinator. So she'll be paid a little more and hopefully have some more hours and be able to work on more in our community outreach and getting those community groups and people into the market and those relationships. So really strengthening those, I think with the schools and with the camps, and there's just a lot more we can do to bring them to us and us to them, and Becky will be on that, so.
So this suggests the city's putting a little more, getting a little more staffing at the market.
It's the same number of staff, but I think Becky will have more hours, so, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, And then finally, I just included this article that All About Ann Arbor wrote about the market, and its 100th year. It has a lot of cool history and photos, and so just included that for if you hadn't seen it yet. It's exciting.
It's a great article.
That's all I have, unless there are any comments or questions on anything I went over.
Now we will open up to our second public comment period.
Hi, Debbie Marks again. I'm glad we are revisiting the needs of the market and looking at the approach for the sides of the market, and the radiated heat and the sensible approach that we've really needed for a long time. I think if we keep those sides light and make it like canvas with clear windows, like you said, Jeff, and maybe even on the east side, have something that could be shaded, only really would be needed on that east side, and then the other side have the clear open. And it could be, in Toledo, we saw the roll-ups, where they could roll up partway, you know, be up high for a breeze or whatever, and you could control it that way, and then the weight is light that way. Also, I'd like to make a comment on the entertainment that was there at the market last Saturday. It was most annoying. I hope that never happens again.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Oh, she wants me to brush that to the side. Okay. It's nice when we have things at the market, but to have them right in the middle is not good. And then to take over the speaker system was quite offensive. Now we know that works nicely, though. We could have good music. Thank you very much. See you at the farmer's market.
I missed that. When did the entertainment start?
Yeah, that was around 11 dancers.
So I want to talk about the winterizing building plans too. I liked Nancy Willoughby's idea. You know, we've always said, why don't we just do that, put a same roof over, and if we could have it flush to the ground and still use that for parking, because parking is so real for us. It really is. People are buying flats of flowers. They're buying their weekly groceries. They're not, a 65-year-old lady's not gonna, and I love everything Stephanie's looking at, the sides, the heat, the radiant heat. So just going forward, I ask, and you guys have already mentioned a bunch of this, but that you consider plans that include the whole market or could eventually cover the whole market. Think about the vendors who would not get to go into the winterized area would be affected. The market's tough in the winter. Think about how much tougher it will be for those next to but left out of the building or warmed area, either because they can't fit their goods in a 6-foot space like the building would be, or because they've been unfairly left out of the seniority system and they can't be in the building. They'll get, or because, they don't have enough family members or employees to have 1 stall inside the building and 2 stalls outside, or even because they don't qualify because they don't have enough need, like a vegetable that must not freeze. The warm area will attract the customers and leave the other vendors out more in the cold than ever. And when we talk about winter, since this very first started, it's like January, February, and March. Well, come sit at the market for 10 hours in December and tell me that's not winter. And there's a lot more than 20 vendors in December. And if we're there in December, which it is a proven fact that December is a busy shopping time in the United States of America. If you go in the Carytown building or if you go to Target or Best Buy on the way home from market, you cry because you've been sitting out there in the freezing cold with this sparse amount of customers, and you go inside and it's just, you can't even move through a store. So if we have this small little warmed area that people can go in at Christmas, and then we have twice as many vendors outside, it's going to be painful for those vendors who get stuck outside. So I hope that I hope we can come up with something that will cover, that will be fair to all vendors and not leave a portion of vendors out in the cold outside that area. Even if maybe it's something that will take a little while to roll out to the whole market, I hope it is something that can eventually be rolled out to the whole market. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Darren Otis. I'm a 30-year vendor at the farmer's market. And I made notes because I get real nervous. In January, Stephanie and I looked at the question, how can we get more customers to the markets? And we're talking about not only the farmer's market, but we have our Sunday market. And the Northville Farmers Market was included in the conversation initially also. I send out a monthly newsletter to 650 customers. So in my January newsletter, I posed some open-ended questions like, what do you like best about the market you attend? What do you like the worst? I had asked customers to phone me, and I just let them talk. I don't like pre-done forms because they limit your answers. Somebody might have something on their mind that isn't on your form, and you don't hear it. So I took notes. The results were really surprising. About 30 people called me, so I grant you it's not a huge significant number, but these are customers who are very loyal to the market. No one that I talked to said that events or live performances would make any difference in their desire to come to the market. Once they're there, they might enjoy music, I don't know, but nobody said they would come because something was going to be going on. But the number one thing that Ann Arbor customers talked about was parking. Some of them even yelled at me. They cited how the market area has changed over the years. One person said, I have to get up at 6:30 just to get there and get a parking space. Another one said, I can't find parking close by and I have problems walking, so I can no longer come. That's really serious. These are good, loyal customers of the market who are coming less often or have stopped coming altogether because of the lack of parking. I also realized in doing my own survey that when you conduct surveys at the market, your results are skewed because who you're surveying are people who are already there. People who have trouble getting there or get discouraged and leave or have come once and stop coming, which I also heard, we came once and it was so horrible that we never came back, or people who have stopped coming altogether. You're not hearing from those people. And I think those numbers are significant. You say that people can park in the structure and walk to the market, but customers cannot walk with several pounds of produce. A small loading zone would be very much needed. I think it would simply take some signage, a designated area, and perhaps a volunteer. We have to remember that there are many other places besides our market where customers can go to buy fresh produce. Yes, some customers find ways to overcome the obstacles they encounter, but many are finding alternatives. And once a customer finds those alternatives, they're gone. My second concern is the lack of space where vendors can unload. The space along Fifth, now the construction that's been finished along Fifth, the space along the curb, which used to be, I think, 3 spaces, is now 1 large space, so only 1 vehicle can unload there. And last year, one of our vendors got a ticket there at 6:30 in the morning while they were unloading. The northern part of Detroit Street along the curve, where Detroit Street funnels into Fifth, is no longer feasible. We used to be able to park 3 or 4 vehicles along there, but that's not feasible because of all the concrete barriers now, the short walls that have been put in place. The northern part of Detroit Street is not available because other vendors are using that to unload. And as far as I can see, the spaces on 4th are pretty much handicapped or designated no parking. So when the market's full again, probably in May, I think the only vendors who are going to find unloading convenient are the ones whose spaces come with parking. Of 144 spaces in the market, at least 75 of them do not come with parking. The market area has become more congested over the past 5 years. When and if you move forward with the building, the congestion and parking problems will become impossible. This is my opinion. There will be less parking for customers and vendors alike, and much less space where vendors can unload. As vendors encounter more stress and inconvenience, they also might find alternatives. The Ann Arbor Farmers Market is not the only market in southeastern Michigan. Vendors can and will and are finding other markets. Last December, the market was only half full. I think we had 3 Saturdays. And my perception was the market was half full. 5 or 6 years ago, there were vendors on the sidewalk. What's happening? Do you know? I think it's worth asking. I encourage you to look at the logistical problems and take them very seriously. Things are changing, and the customers you survey at the market are not giving you a complete picture of customer satisfaction. Let's get ideas from customers and vendors. I think there is a trend that is not being addressed. Let's look at it head-on before it gets worse, and please reconsider the building. You are losing customers and vendors now. If you continue to lose customers and vendors, if my perception is correct, the building will be a moot point. And the building also, if it's built, will result in a lot more congestion in the Carytown area. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we close, I think Darren had some, and they all had some great points. Maybe putting ways to look at the problem of loading and unloading and parking as an agenda item on next meeting could be a good thing to review. And even if this commission doesn't have any ideas, maybe like ideas for how we can reach out to get ideas from vendors or something.
Is there a map with the new configuration, with the street construction and things like that that's finished, that shows the loading and unloading zones?
Yeah, we can, yes, we have a map. Bring that, okay, that'd be great.
Is it possible to speak again?
Sure, yeah.
One thing I wonder is if the street parking on 4th could be designated vendor unloading from, let's say, 5:30 to 7 a.m., where nobody else needs to park there anyway, where vendors wouldn't be worried about getting a ticket. Because right now, you know, I park there in the morning, but it's handicapped, and I think the tickets are real expensive.
Okay. So the suggestion, I'm just going to repeat in the microphone, was to designate parking on 4th for loading and unloading for vendors, maybe from 5 to 7 in the morning, at all those spaces, so no one gets ticketed.
And is that the only handicap parking at the market?
No, there's handicap parking on Detroit Street
Okay.
and 4th Street.
Do you know when, is it Republic Parking that does the meters on 4th, or is that? And so when do they start coming around on Saturday?
I don't know when they start.
Is it 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Okay.
But the police could ticket
Oh, yeah.
at any time, like the
Oh.
neighborhood handicap.
Mhm.
Right.
That would not be Republic.
Okay.
And I think the police could do the loading zones too. They get worked up about the loading zones if you're,
Right.
because
But
isn't there
it's a meter
something,
maid.
the one on
Fifth.
Fifth, it either used to be commercial and now
Right,
it's
they changed
non-commercial
it.
or vice
They
versa.
changed it back twice.
But-
It was, had to have commercial plates, then it was, couldn't have commercial plates.
Which we have both
We don't,
The-
needs.
right.
Yeah,
we have both
yeah.
needs.
Can you guys, if you, just speak into the microphone, because it's a public meeting and
Do you want me
we
to
have
It's
to,
all up to the microphone.
yeah, thank you.
So one problem with the construction with, and it was a problem before because they have that loading zone. It used to be commercial?
Right.
It used to be commercial vehicles only, and now it's non-commercial vehicles only, but we have both.
Denise's truck.
We have commercial vehicles and non-commercial
Right.
vehicles that need to unload in the
Equally.
one parking spot,
Right.
one unloading zone.
I think the change was made on that loading zone because of the new median, so it's about, you know, maneuverability for
Space.
commercial trucks.
There's not
in
room
that
for a
lane.
commercial truck in there anymore.
Yes, and I have asked if we could, if there's any flexibility there, and it doesn't sound like there is.
Okay.
So it's going to remain designated the way it is,
Okay.
but you
And
just
I'll just
send
say,
everywhere.
Even at 6:30 in the morning?
I don't think it's enforced at 6:30 in the morning.
No.
who got it?
Okay, so, I know someone that got a ticket at 8:30, but not 6:30.
All I know is Maxine used to call somebody and just yell at them, and then they'd leave
I-
us alone.
I think it's more of a concern for packing up at the end of the day.
Agreed.
But yeah, in the morning, at least as of yet, I have not heard of any problems.
Packing up seems to be easier. I mean, first of all, you don't have really a deadline.
Really?
Packing up is easier because people leave in a staggered way, and so, but in the morning, we're all trying to unload at the exact same time, so it's more jammed up.
Yeah, I understand I know it's a big issue, it's always been an issue. I don't think we have a perfect solution for it. I think it's worth talking about. I think loading zones, we tried those last year, we didn't advertise them well though, so maybe doing that better would be something. But again, we can talk about it, I think, next meeting and put it as an agenda item.
One big difference with loading and unloading, when the market was full 25, 30 years ago, honestly, all the young people in the dailies would help the annuals. We helped Florence, we helped everybody. I would hand my baby to somebody and we would jump on the back of those trucks and we would unload. Do you remember that, Darren? And we would say, we're doing this and someday someone's gonna do this for us. This is how we did back 30 years ago. We were in our 20s and our 30s. Okay, 30s. Shut up. And we would jump on the back of those trucks and load those big, for these elderly people. And this is what people did back then. It was really more community, and that's why I'm glad Becky's bringing the community into this, because we do need volunteers. We do need young people to help carry the produce to the structure for those people. Wear signs, they could work by donations, they could make money. It is good to get the whole community involved. And unloading is the hard part, to get out of the way for the next person. So, yeah, if we all work together and remember that and kind of do, you don't see people helping each other too much with that anymore. But, yeah, the good old days. Thanks, you guys.
I just have a question that other city parks might, during events, must have something, and I'm wondering if there's like tags for vehicles, if there's already some city protocol on loading and unloading, that since the farmer's market is part of city parks. I don't know, but I just wanted to say maybe there is some protocol already out there, especially for street parking, to have some changes. At the Natural History Museum, if I had to be there temporarily, they would give me, or like when I go up to the Bentley Library, I get a little tag that says I can park in their lot for a while.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing we discussed once in the past was considering changing the sign-in and setup times for, like maybe even moving things up earlier in the morning to sort of alleviate that pressure, like that rush of unloading in the morning, and maybe freeing up some of the congestion with people needing to use loading and unloading zones. So maybe that's something we could talk about. But I feel like there are two different issues. There's parking and then there's unloading. Those are two.
Yeah, there's customer
things.
parking, and
Right.
there's.
And then there's
loading-
vendor parking. And there's
then-
vendor
yeah.
unloading.
I
yeah.
think it would be really helpful for us to have sort of a breakdown of the, let's call them unintended consequences of some of the changes, and maybe some options that, have been identified as things that we could consider for each of these. And I love the idea of considering what other urban markets have done. I mean, you've got to imagine like San Francisco and Seattle and other places have even more of an issue with dealing with loading and unloading of vendors in downtown area markets. So there might be some comparison that we could do.
Even Eastern Market. At Eastern
Yeah.
Market, though, the vendors know the night before where
Yeah.
they're going to be setting up, right?
It's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I think there's a lot of ideas and
Yeah.
it's definitely worth looking into more. Yeah.
I don't think vendors knowing ahead of time is much of the answer. For one reason, at the Sunday market, a couple times we had events, and so we decided it would be really helpful to have everybody commit in advance. Either they're coming or they're not. We had sign-up sheets. And it was so funny because as the day came and went, what happened was what I expected to happen, which is that a lot of the vendors who said they were coming didn't come. But they didn't want to lose their space. So they had said they'd be there. These were annuals. They said they would be there so they could have their space, and then they didn't show up. And so it didn't really make that much difference whether we knew they were coming or not. I think what would help is if the annuals who have spaces without parking, like
Me.
like the Amish. If they, so 2 weeks ago, I didn't take the space I wanted because they pulled in right at 7, like 5 minutes before 7. And I said, I'm probably gonna take that space, and they said, well, we'll unload. And they can't unload that quickly. And so if the annuals who know where they're gonna be could get in and out well before, now it's 7, but soon it's going to be 6, well before that time, it would free up some space. But our parking lot is just so tight that, unfortunately, Stephanie can't be out there because she's in the office to see what actually goes on. A couple of years ago, I was threatened with expulsion from the market because when I pulled in, one of the big growers' trucks was on the lot. And I said to the manager's assistant, I have to get in. And she said, I can't help you right now because I've got to take care of assigning the dailies. And I said, but once you assign the dailies, there will be even more people behind me, and that truck will not be able to get out, and I will not be able to get in because there will be more congestion. And she was new, she didn't understand it. And the following week, Sarah emailed me and said, if you ever do that again, you will be expelled from the market. And it was just like one truck there that hadn't pulled out yet, kept everything at a standstill. And it's the nature of that parking lot. If you want to stagger it, you're going to have to start getting people to come in at, 4:30 in the morning, which some of them I think do.
Can I talk on that? Can I speak on that? Yeah. I'm sorry to keep you guys here all the time, but that's exactly the new parking lot in the corner there by Carytown where I go, especially bad. I have no parking with my stalls. I pay for parking all year just in case, but it's nothing I make an issue of. I get there at ridiculous o'clock so that I can unload in my one stall that I know I'm going to have, get the heck out of Dodge because every other week we have Patty come in. She also is in that corner, has no parking. That's 4 stalls in that corner with no parking that we have to unload. So we just get there ridiculously early as a respect to our neighbors and make it as easy on ourselves as possible. And for people that come after, it's what you do, especially when you've come this long. You want to get in and get out. You want to park and be gone and be out of the way. And maybe a little reminder to everyone this time of year to keep that in mind and do that, not to pull in the lot and wait to, you see it all the time. We yell at people, don't park there, so you don't have to. But anyway, it's that time we have to remind people, come early. Unload in your stall. Try to go in your stall. That helps, And then, of course, the 2 stalls for us would help. Then I could unload and then get out. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I would just go one step beyond what you're saying, Debbie, because I think, you are thinking of other vendors and you're being mindful of the bigger picture, but not everyone is going to think that way. So rather than reminding vendors that it might be nice to come a little earlier, I think we should think about formalizing a policy around staggered setup for annual vendors, because if you don't make it a rule, not everyone's going to follow it. So
Good. This will give me something to add to the outline, like Holly requested for next meeting, maybe breaking down problems and then some potential solutions we can work through. Awesome.
if there's no other business, we're ready to call an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have adjourned the meeting at 6:22.